This program on investing under regulation crowdfunding is not investment advice.
Rising with the crowd, power unbound, change makers lead where hope is found. Superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. Have you ever wondered if it would be possible for you to invest right alongside the wealthiest, savviest investors in the country? Well, our guest today, Lyneir Richardson, is doing exactly that. He's helping ordinary folks get in on deals that customarily are financed only by the wealthy, foundations, and high net worth individuals. He's the CEO of Chicago Trend and an associate professor at Rutgers. He's a big deal. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Superpowers for Good show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and Lyneir, welcome.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We're
and
thrilled
for a
to
great
have
introduction. Yeah, a big deal is a big deal, right?
You're a big deal. So,
Thank you, my friend.
Lyneir, tell us about Chicago Trend.
Yeah, I founded Chicago Trend with the co-founder in 2016. The nature of our business is to strengthen neighborhoods and to democratize ownership of commercial real estate. We focus almost exclusively on commercial property and on retail. Our impression is that retail is the first impression of a neighborhood. If the retail commercial corridor is blighted or disinvested, it can attract crime, it can bring down property values, it becomes a liability for the neighborhood. So we created a business plan and a host of strategies to get capital and get retailers and small businesses back to urban neighborhoods, ethnic, urban, and underserved urban neighborhoods, low and moderate income urban neighborhoods, with the focus of making them stronger and then getting an investment return for all of the people who invest with us.
You know, Super Crowd folks, as you think about what Lyneir is talking about, he's talking about you investing in deals alongside savvy, sophisticated investors on parallel terms. That is so exciting. Lyneir, you've done this now for nearly a decade. You've done a number of projects. Tell us about some of the specific projects where you've done this, and are some of them that you've done years ago now making money, paying off for investors?
Yeah, we are excited. So we've now done 3 investment crowdfunding raises. We raised, just under $1 million of individual capital from individuals. I call them small dollar, impact oriented individuals who want to see progress in a neighborhood. And I'm very excited about that work. We have had one exit, a full exit, where we bought a site, made the improvements, and then we're able to sell it. We have a contract pending on our second shopping center that we bought that we hope will expect to have a closing within the next 30, 45 days. And we have a number of projects that are in progress. We just started, our first investment crowdfunding raise was in March of 2021. And so, we're right at the point where we're 4, 5, 6 years in, where we're starting to really think about, can we refinance? Can we have robust investor distributions? And ultimately, can we have an exit?
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's go back and talk a little bit about the exit that you had recently.
Yeah.
We
bought a site.
Tell us where the project was. Tell us a little bit about the scale and scope, and then how did the investors do?
Yeah. So, the thing I like about our work is I always think about it as we do projects in neighborhoods, really at neighborhood scale. And I enjoy using crowdfunding like a fintech tool, right? Where I can post my offering, know that it's been approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and all of the information about our firm, our strategy, the particular project, and financial returns are available. I call that, and people can review it and make their investment decision using technology. So I call it a fintech tool. That's how I think about the crowdfunding platforms. That then allows me to do old school community organizing, where I'll have meetings on Zoom calls, in church basements, in apartment building common area, in the public libraries, right? And I meet with people and say, here's who I am. This is what our company does. Here's our strategy. All of the information about the offering is available, and I take questions and provide information. That's the nature of the work. One of the projects that we bought was a site we wanted to, and we've imagined that as we buy shopping centers, we bought an industrial site. We imagine that individuals who typically do not get invited to invest, the crowdfunding rules have allowed individuals with 500, or in our instances, $1,000 to invest in our projects alongside of what is traditional large institutional investors. So specifically about the exit, we bought an industrial site in partnership with a local nonprofit organization. The site had a blighted and underdeveloped building. We acquired the site. We demolished the building. We, developed plans to build a 100,000 plus square foot warehouse. And while we were in our development phase, we had another buyer come and say, "We'd love to buy that." So something we paid $3 million for, we sold for over $4.5 million, and we were happy to have an exit. We used that exit strategically to strengthen our balance sheet, to get our investors. It was proof of concept for our investors who made, 3x their sort of investment return, the capital that they invested in, less than a 3-year period of time. And so, obviously we don't go out all the time bragging that, we can get 20%, and 3x multiples in a short period of time. And our shopping center work is more strategic. It's longer term. It is about a 5 or 7 or even a 10-year holding period, because the thesis of that work is we can get an investment return, but we can also strengthen the neighborhood at the same time.
That is so important. That, like you say, the thesis here really is that that retail space is such a sign of the health of a neighborhood, of a community. And when there are empty storefronts, graffiti all over them, it really kind of sends a bad message. And I see that in pockets of my community, and I see the problems. I'm trying to figure out, how do I get Lyneir to come to Stockton, California, and help us redevelop.
Was really cool is I through LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn a lot. I got someone from Stockton saying, "Hey, can you come to Stockton?" Right, and we find our projects like that. Typically, it's either economic development officials. A project we bought in Baltimore, literally the mayor of Baltimore, that said, this place when it was developed, 70 years ago, was a great shopping center. Over time, it declined. There's drug dealing and crime around it. The city is willing to provide support. City of Baltimore, we acquired the shopping center for about $17 million. The city of Baltimore put over $7.5 million of grant and subsidies into the project to allow us to do new facade improvements, to invest in programs for youth violence prevention and crime reduction, to build new pad sites. So, we look for places where there's the economic development agenda around, we want to make this place better, and we would love to have what we call inclusive ownership. So it's not just about, hey, we brought this guy in, a company out of Chicago that's going to own our shopping center, but the key to our work is, in some instances we have 100 or 200 or 60 local people who will patronize and protect and respect the shopping center in a different way because they have this investment interest. In fact, we talk about it as hashtag we own this, right? And the we is even larger than the 100 or 200 people that might invest project by project. it's an extension of them. It's their kids or their grandparents or their fraternity member or their church member, or I always say, or their prom date or a cousin. I know someone who owns that. And if I'm going to go to grab a coffee, let's go to the shopping. Let's go get coffee at the shopping center I own. Well, let's, patronize it, or let's make sure that nobody's hanging out in that way. That's the vision of what it means to have inclusive ownership in a different way.
That's brilliant. One of the things that you have done is to set up a nonprofit to help manage some of the activities that help build community more directly. Tell us about the relationship with your nonprofit and how that works, and the kinds of things you're doing through the nonprofit.
Yeah, it's a complicated deal structure, but we formed the nonprofit in 2019 because many people would say, "I love the work you're doing. I love the work of Chicago Trend, strengthening neighborhoods, democratizing ownership," but the philanthropic partners who really have empowered the work that we do, they would say, "Hey, man, we can't easily provide grant dollars to a for-profit." They could, but technically they could, but it wasn't easy. So after a number of fiscal sponsor relationships and other approaches, we finally formed something called Trend CDC. Trend CDC now receives grant dollars, about $1 million a year or so, from a variety of sponsors for various programs. Due diligence to help us underwrite, to de-risk some of our investment for the community investors. I mentioned youth violence reduction and entrepreneurship programming to help strengthen the neighborhood. We've gotten some grant dollars to do climate positive projects, to do solar panels on the roof. Those type of things that that get energy from philanthropic investment, from true grant capital. That's what we benefited from, and that's why the CDC was formed. And when I say it's complicated, to meet the requirements of the Internal Revenue Service, it has separate governance, it has its own board, it has its own strategy. We say we're aligned at the mission, so people still are providing capital largely to the nonprofit to support the inclusive neighborhood development work, but we're very clear about what's charitable work and what's for-profit work. We have to walk that line with much carefulness.
That's brilliant. Lyneir, we got to take a quick break here, but
Yes.
Don't worry, we'll come back. Super Crowd friends, this is so amazing. Lyneir really is one of the most revered leaders in the impact crowdfunding space because he's been so deliberate about using this tool, this powerful tool, to rebuild communities and allowing ordinary investors like you and me to participate alongside wealthy, savvy investors in doing real meaningful work at community development that is grassroots oriented. We're talking about constructive redevelopment. This is exciting stuff. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Lyneir about his superpower. You don't want to miss this. Stick around.
Download a free copy of How to Make Money with Impact Crowdfunding, the book Sarah Hanks describes as
a fantastic overview, not just of crowdfunding investing, but of investing in general.
Andrew Savickas raved,
"This book offers unparalleled insights for anyone looking to make a difference."
Scan the QR code to get your copy. Supercrowd 25, where innovation meets impact.
18 hours of live content, 5 platforms, 1 global audience.
Join the largest event for regulated investment crowdfunding. Live pitches, expert panels, real change.
August 21st and 22nd.
Scan the code or visit thesupercrowd25.com to register free today.
Struggling to raise capital for your business? Unlock the power of the crowd with AI. My free guide, Crowdfunding Made Simple, walks you through every step to success. Get funded smarter, faster. Scan the QR code now for your free download.
Welcome back. I am just so thrilled today. Super Crowd members, we've got with us today Lyneir Richardson. He is really one of the premier leaders in the impact crowdfunding space, and we're honored to have him. We've been talking about his work, talking about the development projects that he's doing that are changing communities, changing neighborhoods dramatically. We're going to shift gears now to talk to Lyneir about his own personal superpower. So stick around. You don't want to miss this. Lyneir, you're a big deal, and you've done amazing things and continue to do them. I'm excited to watch you continue your super high impact work. What is your superpower?
I knew you were going to ask that question, and it's hard to talk about it, from a humble perspective. What I always believe is my calling is to see value in people and places that other people overlook or undervalue. That's when people say, "Oh, it's too hard to do that deal. Oh, it's too small. Oh, it's just as difficult to do a small deal as it is to do a big deal. So why not just do the big deal?" Right? Some part of that work of bringing expertise to community and neighborhood development is what I find, rewarding. And what's interesting now is I now have 8 people on my team who all have that same sort of orientation. They have great education. They've worked at big firms, Jones Lang LaSalle and General Growth and Morgan Stanley and CBRE, but they also bring that passion for community. So they're bringing that expertise and that education with a passion to make the world better, to make neighborhoods better through commercial real estate development. That's what's fun. And that's, the superpower of our company is something that I'm very proud of.
Yeah. That is a powerful superpower, that bringing together that expertise and the passion for impact. Lyneir, I wonder if you can reflect on a moment in time, a specific instance, to give us an example of how you've used that pairing of expertise and passion to make a difference. Think of a moment in time in the completion of a project where that was vital to bringing the success together.
Yeah, I mean, we're working every day to get people to understand the potential of neighborhoods, as well as we're working in neighborhoods with community organizations and organizers. So the thought of the last time that was most evident was we bought a shopping center where we had to get covenants changed. These covenants were in place since the 1940s. They restricted the development that we wanted to do, but there also was a racial covenant that said this property could never be sold to a Negro. Right? So I literally had to knock on doors of 119 neighbors and my team. I always say it's not just me, it's the team, to convince the neighbors to amend this covenant. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled that racial covenants are unconstitutional, and we could have just disregarded it, but we thought about it at that time, and in the current moment, is even more relevant that hey, we should address this. We should amend this covenant to get rid of this racial, restrictive covenant, insensitive covenant, while we're getting the other development approvals. And so through that process, we had all these meetings on Saturday mornings and nights, articulating both our vision and our hope for the project and how we would finance the project, how we would make the case to new retailers, how we would get public subsidy. Again, all of that work is unrelated in some respects to can you make the pro forma for this real estate work. It was almost a precondition to getting there. And you could only do that work if you both love real estate and love community. If you had passion for the numbers and you have passion for the narrative, right? And so that's the nature of what it means to want to be profitable, but not necessarily a profit maximizer, and want to do good, but not necessarily be a missionary, right? The hardest part of this work is the intentional focus and tension between mission, between market opportunity, and between a desire to make a profit and money, right? So I am unapologetic about the need for crowdfunding campaigns and community campaigns, this project sponsor to really be focused on, will the investors get a return, and will the community be better after after we receive our return at the same time?
Yeah, what you're talking about is essential. Folks, super crowd members, as you think about what he's talking about, what he's saying is that to bring together a real impact, an impact investment that's successful, you've got to incorporate both the profit and the impact. It doesn't, one without the other is not going to work as an impact investment. And it's sometimes challenging, and that passion and expertise that he has are just absolutely essential. Now, Lyneir, can you give us a tip for developing that parallel power to bring together expertise and passion for impact at the same time?
Yeah, I sort of alluded. I think impact work is the narrative and the numbers. It's the story that you tell that people believe in, the communication of the vision. Impact work is a lot about we can make a place better, a world better. We can make outcomes for people. We can have better services and amenities in a place, right? That's impact real estate work that I do. Right. So at its core, it's about, we can solve a problem, we can make things better in anyone who's doing impact oriented, social enterprise oriented work. And so often people are great at telling that story, right? We want to have better arts, and we want to have inclusive governance, and you can tell that story. At the same time, to really be, I think, successful at it as an impact investor, or impact sponsor, the work has to communicate the potential in the numbers. Here's our revenue expectation. Here's our expenses. Here's what we believe will be our net operating income or profit. Here's the equity we will need to raise. Here's the debt we will raise. Here's the return that we project will come to our equity investors. Here we have enough income in the project to service our debt, right? If both don't work, right, the passion runs out if it's not profitable. And if you don't have a passion for the narrative and the neighborhood and the change, then, we're just saying, I want to be private equity, right? And my mother used to say, there's not better or worse. It's the decision you make. I made the decision that my company and the people that I value on my team have the same orientation. We want to do mission work, but we also want to make a profit.
That's wonderful, and such a shared passion I think we have, and I'm grateful for it. I aspire to manifest the kind of superpower you have. So I appreciate you taking the time to share that with me. I know Super Crowd members are also thinking about how to deploy that in the same way, right? They want to channel their inner Lyneir, right, folks?
I
well, listen,
that.
Lyneir, as we wrap up now, tell everyone how they can connect with you personally, how they can learn more about Chicago Trend, how they can, follow up with you. Maybe take a minute and explain your connection to Rutgers. Walk us through.
Yes. So it is, best way to connect with me is Lyneir Richardson on LinkedIn. I'm very much on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn. I post a lot on LinkedIn. I benefited from the support of philanthropy that we've now created some tools. We have a guidebook, a case study. We have a playbook. So all of that stuff, if you connect with LinkedIn or go to our website, chicagotrend.com, they're free tools about the work that we invite you to take a look at. And as you mentioned, I'm a professor at Rutgers Business School. I've been on the faculty there for 11 years. I run our Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. And I sort of teach the students how to think about business solution to urban problems, how to see opportunity in underinvested neighborhoods. Again, it's how fun is it to be able to teach and to be able to do. I'm at a high point in my career and very blessed to have these opportunities.
Well, Lyneir, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I, I admire your work. I'm so grateful for the leadership you show in this effort, and I want to wish you every success in your ongoing efforts to build communities and to use crowdfunding not only as a tool for financing it, but as a tool for building the community with the investors. So thank you so much. And again, we wish you every success.
Devin, I appreciate the opportunity.
All righty, now let's do some good.